California Debate Institute negates. Contention 1 is recession recovery. American economy is extremely volatile. Unemployment spikes every few years, and recessions are a regular occurrence. Ameriman 19 writes, 164 years of economic history show us that we could expect a great recession every 5 years. Luckily, right to work cushions the impact of every recession in 3 ways. First is by spurring manufacturing. Manufacturers thrive in right to work states. Luchin finds 2/3 of chief financial officers said a right to work law is necessary when they decide where to place their business. Indeed, Auto 17 finds right to work fosters an ideal environment for manufacturing by empowering employees who disagree with labor obstruction. That's why NRTWC 22 finds after switching to right to work, 5 states saw their factory payrolls grow by 11.3% and create 400,000 jobs. States that lack RTW saw a decrease of 29,000 jobs. Indeed, Austin concludes RTW led to a 28% increase in manufacturing. Manufacturing is key for an economic revival. NAM 17 finds for every dollar spent, another 1.81 is added to the economy, the highest multiplier of any economic sector. Every manufacturing job supports 3.6 additional jobs, but he reports manufacturing drives 35% of productivity growth. Second is through investment. Unions for investment. Austin 21 finds unions extract rents through strikes and demanding higher wages, leading to firms reducing their capital investment. Thankfully, investors flock to right to work states and businesses in RTW states invest more. Caballo 21 explains, RTW laws show firms that they are now welcome and that states are focused on improving businesses. Empirics prove this. Manly 15 finds since enacting RTW, 107 businesses cited RTW as the factor in their decision to locate in Indiana, providing more than $3 billion in investment. This is key as FDI supports recovery. The AIC finds FDI supports 26.3 million jobs, paying $1.7 trillion in total wages. Independently, Wagner 12 writes, investors perceive unions as a barrier to debt payments. States that have RTW laws are rewarded by investors with borrowing costs that are 21 basis points lower than states without the laws. Furthering, many states may not return to their pre-recession fiscal balances for years as unions contribute to state fiscal woes. Third is promoting small businesses. Ohio 11 explains startups have very low profit margins. Increased unionization will disproportionately raise costs, which lead to high failure rates. 21% of unions were at firms with less than 10 workers. Better 10 states, returns to capital investment are impaired by unionization, so new startups are much lower in non-right to work states. Small businesses are key to economic recovery. If small businesses fail, they'll prolong the recession, delay the recovery. Small businesses are the heart of the economy. They are responsible for a larger share of the new jobs created each year and boost employment during recessions. Overall mix, 21 fine states with RTW have done well in economic recovery, and the rebound was 63% greater than forced union states. Recession recovery is key. BU 19 writes, empirically, as consumption and income decline in the U.S., countries experience a significant reduction in exports as well as investments. As a result, 100 million fell into extreme poverty. Contention 2 is innovation. The U.S. drives innovation globally. USDS 22 writes, the U.S. is the most innovative economy in the world. Companies drive global innovation of emerging tech. Thankfully, RTW incentivizes innovation by reducing the financial risk posed by unions. Key 22 explains, following RTW adoption, firms experience a significant reduction in risk, encouraging innovation through weakening unions, thus reducing financial distress. Firms increase R&D expenses by 25% following adoption, increase pan count and pan citation count. Empirically, in the aerospace industry, Bradley 13 writes, Boeing's experience to build a Dreamliner jet in areas which have more business-friendly labor laws than Washington. The impacts are twofold. Versus economic growth. Evans 22 quantifies 50% of U.S. GDP growth is attributed to innovation. Domestic growth spills globally. Aurora explains U.S. growth has a positive impact on growth in developing countries, explained by its role as a trading partner. A 1% increase in U.S. growth is correlated with a 1% increase in growth in other countries. That's key. Bajoria OA terminalizes a 1% decline in developing country growth rates, traps an additional 20 million people into poverty. Second is lives. Hansman 15 quantifies health innovation could avert 10 million deaths each year. Thus, we negate.
We affirm our sole argument is usurping unions. Prior to the 2000s, union membership was at record highs. Unfortunately, the widespread adoption of right-to-work laws in 2001 reversed this trend. Page of NBR 22 quantifies that right-to-work laws have decreased unionization by 13%. Thus, Erickson 11 finds the foundation of right-to-work laws is not creating jobs or worker freedom, but instead supercharging big corporations while restricting the power of workers to join together in unions. This is the opposite of a two-way street. Cooper 21 explains that right-to-work laws allow non-unionized employees who don't join the union to reap all the benefits of union membership without having to pay their fair share of the costs. That's why Cooper analyzes that right-to-work laws shrink union resources, which blocks their ability to negotiate better wages, benefits, and working conditions. Specifically, squashing these unions hurts America's working class in 2 ways. First is through political organizing. Right to work severely hinders unions' abilities to turn out their members and communicate widely to voters. Council 17 finds, because right-to-work laws require unions to represent all workers in a given work site, time spent on servicing and membership recruitment limits their ability to focus on broader issues. Specifically, with right-to-work laws, there are less resources available for the unions to organize political efforts and outreach activities. Empirically, Council furthers that 50% of right-to-work states had a significant drop in union organizing efforts. A lack of organizing efforts has two disastrous implications. The first is elections. Feigenbaum 18 finds, after right-to-work laws were implemented, the number of state legislators who had previously worked blue-collar jobs decreased dramatically. This is because of a lack of union power, as between elections, unions develop political interest among workers. Feigenbaum furthers that these specific state legislators are crucial as they strongly support better economic policies for workers, like a stronger safety net and higher wages. Pulling safety nets out from under these workers is devastating, as Cawthorn 21 concludes that right-to-work laws promote short-sighted policies that trap millions of people in poverty. The second reason is lobbying. Green 22 finds that unions are key for lobbying to pass legislation that would increase health and safety promotion for workers, like the Protecting America's Workers Act. Empirically, acts like these have saved hundreds of thousands of lives. AFL-CIO 22 terminalizes that legislation lobbied for by unions, like the Occupational Safety and Health Act, have saved the lives of 650,000 workers. However, right-to-work laws reversed this progress and removed the union's ability to fight for better working conditions. AFL-CIO concludes that workplace hazards still kill 125,000 workers every year. This is empirically verified as right-to-work states are much more dangerous. O'Sullivan finds the rate of fatalities in the workplace is 54% higher in states with right-to-work laws. The second way right-to-work laws ruin the livelihoods of America's working class is by widening inequality. Unions are vital to ensuring equality. Bond 21 writes, unions promote support for racial inclusion and equality by influencing the attitudes of their white members. This has led to these members becoming much more likely to support governmental efforts that improve the socioeconomic standing of the Black community. Tribune 18 writes that right to work disproportionately hurts Black workers because non-union employers no longer have to compete with other employers that are offering higher standards due to a union. It significantly lowers the bar for working conditions. In fact, Wilson 18 quantifies that Black workers in right-to-work states make 11.5% less than those in non-right-to-work states. This economic inequality is devastating. As Fabes 20 argues, economic exclusion widened by structural racism keeps millions of people in poverty. It's intergenerational. Oakford 14 concludes that growing levels of income inequality, which are racial gaps, threaten the economic future of our country. By increasing incomes, it alleviates the poverty faced by future generations. Finally, Holland 14 finalizes, if we had an income distribution more like other wealthy countries, 1 in 3 deaths in America could be avoided. Thus, we proudly affirm.
Okay, cool. Let's talk about, I guess, this idea on workplace safety, right? Specifically, how many lives has right to work, how many deaths has right to work led to in workplaces?
We don't have a quantifiable number for how many deaths it specifically led to, but we tell you that A, unions have lobbied for legislation that have saved the lives.
Yeah, I got that. I just need it terminalized. Or I guess, can I get a follow-up? Do you have a specific impact on how many lives unions have saved in workplaces?
Yeah, 650,000 workers since the passing of the Occupational Safety and Health Act.
Wait, but that's 650,000. Wait, I'm confused on like the methodology. Is it just 650,000 throughout all of the US or just in union states specifically?
I mean, it's throughout all the US, but the nuance is
that that's still in right to work states, right?
I mean, yeah, the nuance is that the reason that these laws were passed is because unions lobbied for them back in like 1970.
Wait, but okay, got it. Okay, cool. Yeah, you can have a question.
Okay, so on your argument about manufacturing, where are the companies like moving from into right to work states?
I would say they're probably moving from like states like California, for example, to like Midwest states.
Wait, so why is like Apple in California and it's like the richest company in the country?
Wait, what did you say?
Why is like Apple in California and it's like the richest company in the country and it's like in a non-right to work state then?
Wait, that's very different. I would say that's because of Silicon Valley, and also that's not specifically in manufacturing. And we would say that, for example, Apple and all these industries are not unionized, and you're still seeing innovation. Can I get a question?
Wait, they're not unionized?
Yeah, we would say that they're not unionized, and you're still seeing innovation happen. Can I get a question?
Sure.
All right, let's talk about. Give me one sec. Where is okay, yeah, let's talk about, I guess, like back to workplace safety, right? So insofar as right to work decreases business input costs, why can't they use that money to invest in like safety-based technology?
Wait, what do you mean right to work decreases business input cost?
I don't know. For example, let's say like you would see labor strikes decrease, which means that they have like, that would decrease like, the business input cost, which is exactly that. I guess like, I feel like it's pretty agreeable that right to work does decrease business input costs. Businesses don't have to account for like labor strikes and etc. So I guess like insofar as that's true, why can't they use that money to invest in safety-based technology?
I mean, investing in safety would require like a lot bigger investment from the business. So obviously, if we both agree that the businesses want to keep their like labor costs low, they're not going to be investing in the workers to improve their working conditions
Wait,
because they have
why?
no incentive
That
to
doesn't
do
make
so.
sense. If workers are dying, if workplace safety is a big issue, and if workers are dying, why would businesses not invest money to help keep them safe? And if
There's a lot,
anything,
there's, like, much
historically, we've
cheaper
seen this
labor.
happen. For example, like in Oklahoma, they've seen a 40% decrease in workplace deaths, and that's a right to work state. They've invested in safety-based technology. So I feel like historically, this argument is true.
I mean, we would say that with right to work, there's no check back from unions on companies, so companies can do whatever they want, which is why the incentive for companies to not pay not subsidize their workers is because they want to keep their labor costs as low as possible to
All right,
escape the chance of any unions like lobbying against them. But
all
that's
right,
fine.
that's gross.
Let's start time now. At the top, we would argue that unions are ineffective. Shirk 15 explains that union dues force workers to purchase union representation regardless of how their union performs, which is why Score Up 22 finds that unions only spend 6% of their total revenue on workers. And Shirk finds that unions charge higher dues and pay their top officers $20,000 more in non-RTW states. This means that lower membership dues won't trade off with worker benefits because they only spend 6% of their revenue on workers. And that also shows why unionization has gone down significantly, because unions aren't effective in the first place. It's not because of right to work. On their first argument about politics, first, we would argue it's non-unique. Wexler 22 finds that while right to work is associated with more conservative leadership of the state's legislature, these trends began before RTW would have existed anyways. He finds that historically in Missouri, there was no impact on policy after implementing RTW. But second, turn it, despite union money going to Democrats, Lewis 20 finds that many union members themselves ended up voting Republican because Trump promised to rebuild American manufacturing. Lewis continues that active union members are actually more Republican than non-union members, which is that Jamieson 21 finds that at least 6 major unions contribute to the campaigns of 13 House Republicans. But turn it again, as Galley 17 finds that RTW stopped unwanted political contributions because unions support political candidates fund union fees, but with right to work, workers can stop contributing to a union when their support is not represented in their views. Turn it again, because Welch 22 finds that unions are politically corrupt and have created bribery systems where they favor corrupt candidates. Indeed, the Salvo 14 finds that unions are only superficially democratic, with voter turnout for union leadership elections below 20%. This outweighs on scope because less voter turnout not only harms specific candidates, but widespread political corruption also breaks down America's democracy, because unions are corrupt in the first place, which also probably turns their whole case, because if they're politically corrupt, they're not using actual money properly, and they end up embezzling funds, which is empirically verified. Finally, Retro 21 finds that unions want people to think and act a certain way and also force their members to vote in accordance to their views, and which ends up killing political efficacy, because it doesn't allow voters to actually put their own thought into their actual votes. First, again, going on to their impacts, first on their policy impact, it's really uncontextualized. There's no impact as to what these bad policies are or how many people would be affected. It just says how new policies aren't going to be representing people. There's no contextualization of what that means. Then on their second impact about workplace safety, 2 responses. First, they only compare right to work versus non-right to work. Homan 12 finds that right to work states just happen to have more dangerous jobs like farming, fishing, and forestry, regardless of whether a state is right to work. But controlling for causation, Homan 12 finds that right to work states have a lower instance of workplace injuries. In Oklahoma, for example, right to work decreased injuries by 40%. But second, there's no normalized impact as to how many workplace deaths work is caused or how many unions have actually helped here. It's really uncontextualized. On their second contention about income gaps and racial income gaps, first, Better 14 finds that a majority of right to work states were historically poorer, and Shannon 14 finds that a right to work state often has lower cost of living, meaning that a lower wage will support the same standard of living, which is why Redo 3 concludes that once economic conditions are taken into account, wages are 7.93% higher in right to work states. But second, forcing people to join unions decreases wages in 2 ways. First, it only helps the workers with the most power, or Retro 22 finds that more often than not, unionizing didn't raise pay for new employees. Some may earn more, but some may earn less after unionization. But indeed, our IRI finds that unions decrease wages for 93% of workers. Under right to work clause, employees who are hurt more than help by unions don't have to stay. But second, it prevents job mobility, or Retro 22 finds that union contracts sets the maximum pay for members. Employers cannot reward high performers with the pay raise, and the ability to promote employees is confined. IRI finds that just unions drive out top performing employees, and RTW solved the problem because employers who don't want to cap on the wages they can give don't have to participate. Employees who don't don't want a cap on their wage, don't have to participate in the union. Overall, Austin 21 concludes that right to work reduces the share of individuals below the poverty line by 1.4%. Finally, turn it again. On the right to work, unions have to reach out to a wider range of workers instead of relying on automatic feed. That's why Garcia 18 finds that Nevada's unions, for example, work hard to recruit immigrants, POC, and women. More than half of members are Latino, 55% are women, and in a right to work world, which is more than the national average. Thus negate.
Okay. Before I start my speech, I'd just like to say thank you to the North American Debate Circuit for running a great tournament, and I appreciate that they're trying to make more accessibility because it's something really important in our school especially. So with that, I'll begin my speech starting now. Start at the top of our case. The first thing they read you is this shirk evidence, which A is Trump's policy advisor, who is anti-union, just wants to destroy workers' rights. It's super biased. But B, we'd say even if you account for this study that only 6% of money spent on workers, A, it's misconstrued because Shirk doesn't actually get peer reviewed or anything. He just misconstrues research reports to support him. But B, we'd say the rest of this money, which the Supreme Court defined worker representation can only include buying things like worker machinery or etc. The rest of this money goes to things like political lobbying, which isn't included under this definition, and lobbying for corporates to have better minimum wage policies. Then on this thing that many union members ended up voting Republican, literally look at the article. There's no sources cited. They try doing this weird analysis on very few states. It's cherry picked. But B, they're not saying they're more Democratic. If you look at their actual conclusion, it just says there's more strong Democrats or they're more Republican. They're just less independent overall. But B, even in that same evidence, it says the plurality are Democrat, and overall unions are extremely Democratic, as evidenced by all of our evidence, which actually does these studies and finds what unions are advocating for. B, even if you buy it, you still believe our empirics over there of the acts that have actually been passed saving workers, which will be extended in summary. Then they say our impact is unspecific. Cool, we'll extend it in summary. It was very specific with specific acts, specific numbers of lives. Then they say unions are politically corrupt and voter turnout is low. Again, that's voter turnout for union elections, not actual elections. But B, we'd say that unions aren't politically corrupt. Forcing them to vote their way is actually a good thing, because when the unions are the ones who are extremely educated, while workers working a 9-to-5 job might not know what's best for them, the unions do. And that's why we've seen these pro-worker policies lobbied by the unions, and they only win when we have strong unions. Then on our C2, they say or on their safety argument, they say in Oklahoma, decreased injury by 40%. That's super cherry picked on a holistic scale. They can see the evidence that there's a 54% increase in workplace fatality in right to work states. But B, they can see the warranting. It's because unions go down, so there's no more collective bargaining for workers' rights. Then on our C2, the only thing they say are wages are higher, and they give a bunch of evidence that wages are higher. Let's group all of this. Our evidence from the Economic Policy Institute is the most rigorous study, analyzing 42 variables. It controls for all the things they say, like cost of living, and finds that overall right to work clause decreased wages because it kicks out the union bargaining. All of their evidence comes from big corporates and companies who are just trying to make more billions of dollars. But then let's go to their arguments. At the top, on recession recovery, a few responses. On manufacturing specifically, companies don't move based on right to work laws. Erasm explains there are many reasons why firms locate where they do. Right to work laws were in none of the top 5 manufacturers were in right to work states. Only 2 of the top 15 were. Companies don't actually care about right to work, but Turner, again, CBR finds after over 75 years of research, it finds that there's an 8% increase in manufacturing in non-right to work states, while their evidence is all cherry picked. But then on this thing about investment, Turner, unions increase investment. That's why Solus 15 finds in a strategic environment with bargaining over wages and employment, union power may increase investment in research and development. If a union expects substantial gains from an innovation, it will bargain for high research and development expenditure. A, this short circuits their case insofar as wages and investment control link into innovation, manufacturing, and investment. We argue unions are the best solution. Additionally, absent wage negotiation, which is unique to unions, investment can't happen. But then go to their second contention on innovation. First of all, no link empirically. Most innovative companies are unionized. Grimshaw argues Boeing, Southwest, Disney, GE, the NYT, and Apple just recently became unionized. They're all highly innovative. Then Turner, unions increase innovation. 2 warrants A ideas. Burton 21 finds by encouraging workers to promote their ideas, unions increase the flow of R&D and thus facilitate technical knowledge. But B, bargaining. Souls 15 finds, again, when you can bargain over wages, the workers are more incentivized to be more productive and innovate so that we can get the gains. But Burton concludes the presence of workers' representation enhances propensity to innovate by 23%, which outweighs because workers have no incentive to actually innovate and work hard if there's no unions defending them. But then overview on generally on their case, all of their impacts are helping the big businesses, whereas ours are helping the actual workers. Remember, if businesses make a tiny more profit by paying the workers less, it doesn't go to innovation. Instead, it goes to things like profits, like Apple making billions in profits. Don't buy any of their arguments for that reason.
Sure, I guess.
Okay. Time starts.
Oh wait, can you hear me?
now. Yeah. So Okay, so your argument is predicated on the fact that like businesses with extra like money by saving operation costs, they'll spend on innovation. Is that correct? Like they'll spend on innovation,
Well, so
investment,
it's
manufacturing,
it's like the risk. But it's not specifically that. It's about there's a financial risk posed by unions, i.e., when you have the specific unions, there's things like labor obstruction. That's a problem.
Okay, so just
And
the
like
fact that
like
there's like
different links.
right.
I
So
mean,
but the like
specifically
in
on small
general, right?
businesses, we tell you that.
Yeah, same like small
I mean,
businesses,
it's
big
not
business
really in
in general.
general.
The
Like
link is
each of
just
them.
that they have more worker costs, right?
Well, not it's more operating costs, but not really just worker costs because we
Okay,
say that
operating
unions still have
costs, right?
in effect. Sure, yeah. Can I have a question?
Okay. Yeah, so I just like a quick follow-up. Like, so when
It's been
big
45
businesses
seconds. Can I
are
have a question?
sure.
Okay, so let's go to your impact on let's go to your first impact on policy off of politics, right? So you just tell me that can you give me a couple examples of policies that have specifically been passed due to right to work, or is it only like workplace
Sure,
safety?
Protecting America's Work Act, Occupational Safety and Health Act, which all were
Yeah,
inconstructive and
that's
will be
OSHA.
extended
Yeah,
in summary.
OSHA, right?
OSHA and the Protecting America's Work Act. There's tons of them. Passing safety nets too.
What are those?
Uh,
So, but then what specifically do you read impacts of what each of those acts have caused?
yeah, the safety nets have pulled millions out of poverty. The specific saving, like Protecting America's Workers and the OSHA,
Wait, but
have
the
saved
safety net, wait,
650,000 lives.
the safety net isn't all attributable to unions though. Like unions are
Unions are the ones
unions.
lobbying for these politicians, and they're the reasons they win. That's our entire link, which
So
was
what
pretty
the?
much uncontested.
Okay, okay, sure. You can have a question.
Okay, so when businesses make extra money, what do they do with that extra money?
They reinvest it.
They reinvest it, really? Is that why every single
Yeah.
company right now, like big company right now, is making billions in profits and just paying their corporates higher?
No. What they do is, yeah, of course, corporates also make more, but employees also make more with better businesses.
Wait, that's
We say
trickle
specifically, for
economics.
example,
Which has been disproved.
no. It's not trickle down. Trickle down economics is if you pay if you pay the employers more, than it ends up trickling down. But my point is that directly the wages increase, right? Our evidence is pretty clear. We'll respond to your EPI evidence, but our evidence, what you don't respond to, is the fact that we have a lower cost of living and the fact the majority of states were historically poor. You just try to say that the EPI evidence controls for all of this,
Yeah,
but
it controls.
we'll respond to that specifically. But okay, first of all, I mean, we can talk about that, but the EPI evidence, our evidence directly analyzes that study and finds that it has severe methodological flaws. And then B, the EPI itself gets the majority of its funding from unions. So of course
you're
they're going
telling
to tell
me
you that,
you're telling me your study funded by corporates is better than the head of the U.S. Department of Labor who headed that study and the Economic Policy Institute who have done analysis over years upon years,
Wait, no,
controlling for the
Reed
most variables.
Reed is not affiliated by corporates who have funded that. That's not Reed. Right, our Reed study is specifically analyzing our Reed study isn't actually funded by corporates, but then most importantly, right, who the funding is by. Your study has clear methodological issues that our study points, our evidence points that out. It specifically analyzes your study, but I think that's cross.
Wait, hold on. My study is done by the chief economist of the U.S. Department of Labor. Are you saying the chief economist of the U.S. Department of Labor is misconstruing their studies?
Yeah. No, it's not misconstrued. They have made methodological flaws. Even the best researchers can make mistakes. Our evidence points that out. It literally cites the EPI study conducted by Gould. But yeah.
The time. Now, on our first argument on manufacturing, we can see that companies don't move based on right to work, which kicks them out of their terms. On investment, they say that unions increase investment, which controls innovation. There's no contextualization on how much unions increase investment by. Also, they can see the warranting and empirical case where we tell you that unions extract rents through strikes, which leads to foreign firms reducing their capital investment. And they can see the empiric that since enacting right to work, 107 businesses cited right to work as the factor in their decision to locate and actually invest in these businesses. For example, in Indiana, they provide more than $3 billion in investment, all conceded don't buy their turn. Let's on innovation. They first say that there's no link on how that most innovative companies are unionized. This is correlation, not causation. For example, it's in the Silicon Valley, which is highly innovative, and also tech is not unionized, what disproves their argument. But second, they say that unions increase innovation, but they've conceded or impaired that the budget goes down by 25% on research and development, and that patent citations decrease, which means the quality of innovation goes down if you affirm. Their evidence just says the propensity to innovate increases. What does that mean? There's zero contextualization on here. You prefer us here. But the round ends when they have conceded our specific link on small businesses. Don't allow any new specific link responses. We explained to you that unions hurt startups by depriving their resources and raising costs, leading to higher failure rates, overall decreasing returns to capital investment. Small businesses are key to recession recovery, as if they fail, it prolongs recessions and are responsible for boosting employment during recessions, keeping 100 million from being pushed into poverty. They give you one response, super generalized. They just say all of our impacts are about big businesses. No, we explain that recessions push 100 million into poverty globally, which independently means that we outweigh on scope because we affect everyone globally. Their impacts are only specific to a few industries within the US. At that point, let's go to the Wayne debate, like Skolby just said. But second, if recessions occur and people lose their jobs, that means they can't access the benefits that that they talk about in their case. But third, firms decrease their benefits towards their employees during recessions because of worse economic conditions, which means that firms have less money in the first place to actually, for example, to invest in workplace safety or invest in politics, for example. At that point, let's go to their case. What's been fully conceded on politics is that while right to work associated with more of a conservative leadership of a state legislature, these trends happened before RTW, and historically in Missouri, there was no impact on policy after implementing RTW. But second, extend the trend where RTW stops unwanted political contributions. Unions support political candidates from union fees. In RTW, workers can stop contributing to a union when the support is not representative of their views. On workplace safety, they just compare RTW versus non-RTW. That their evidence is correlation since RTW is in more dangerous states, whereas we tell you in Oklahoma, for example, after you control for causation, RTW states have lower workplace injury. On racial income gaps, we tell you that majority of RTW states were historically poor. Their EPI evidence is terrible. It tries to control for a lot of stuff, but EPI is funded by unions, and our evidence directly finds that their EPI study has severe methodological flaws. Extend our turn where we tell you that wages are 8% higher in RTW states once you account for economic conditions. Thus, you should have negate.
So the order will be Aff, then, or our case, weighing, or our case, then their case, then weighing in between. Okay, everyone ready? Cool. Start on our case, it's very simple. We tell you that right to work means that people free ride off the unions because they want the benefits but don't want to pay the fees. That's really important because it means that unions collapse in the long run because they're not getting the fees to be able to actually help their workers. That's really bad for true. Also, this free riding link was not in the summary at all. Don't let them respond to it in final focus. It was fully conceded. Let's go to like the specific arguments. First, on politics, we tell you that when unions' power is decreasing, it means that they can't lobby for better policies to be passed to A, pull millions of workers out of poverty with better safety nets, but B, improve worker safety in the workplace, which has empirically saved the lives of 650,000 workers with the Occupational Safety and Health Act. That always a probability because it's already happened and it was lobbied for by unions specifically. That's our evidence that was conceded. Second of all, actually, yeah. Let's go to their responses. First of all, they tell you that like right to work states are Republican, absent right to work, but no. Even if that's true, they conceded the causal evidence that comes from the council that tells you that after right to work specifically, there was a 50% drop in organizing. 50% of right to work states had a drop in organizing efforts even after right to work because unions were weakened. That's like the direct logical link. They don't give you any warranting. Default to the team that gives you the actual warranting. Then they tell you that unions are like Republican, but they don't give you a holistic analysis. But for our analysis, that unions are overall democratic and pass better policies across the entire nation to save the lives of workers across the entire nation. Overall, it's going to be outweighing on like lives over econ because lives are reversible. And then they say that unions force workers to vote vote the same way. That's probably better because workers aren't as educated as unions. So if union bosses who are much more educated are voting for the unions, are voting for like the better politicians, and they pass better policies, which is comparatively better than their world. Then on safety, they said that right to work was in more dangerous states, they said that right to work was in more dangerous states, but that's completely cherry picked. They cold concede the holistic analysis that there's a 54% increase in fatality rates after right to work when controlling for all this like preconditions. On inequality, the stand like applies because of free riding unions can't fight for equality, which is why black worker wages dropped by 11.5%. That was fully conceded in their last speech, and it's a much bigger number than 8%. They don't give you the warranting as to why EPI being funded by unions is bad. We would say that because it controls for 42 variables and is headed by the U.S. Department of Labor, there's no reason it's bad. We would say it's probably comparatively better than their evidence, which is probably also funded by like pro right to work people. That's at that point the only actual like team that provides the only actual team that you should be voting for is the team that provides the best warranting, which is us, because we tell you that because unions can't fight for equality, black workers' wages dropped by 11.5%, which is why millions of them are pushed into poverty, and it's intergenerational because if you like grow up in poverty, you're going to be living in poverty after that, which is why it's always on time frame. Let's go to their case. First of all, they really mishandled this turn on their C2, which is that unions A facilitate the flow of ideas by like subsidizing workers, but B they also bargain to allow good innovations. This cross up to their small business like because like they don't tell you what quality of innovation is. We would say if unions are actually like promoting good innovations and stopping bad innovations, it means that like they're probably going to be comparatively better than a company that's just like lowering the cost of their workers to make the most innovation possible. What the prerequisite fully conceded is the fact that workers control the linkage to the economy. If you don't have workers that are being paid enough or like don't have the benefits because of the unions, they wanted the incentive to actually work in the economy to improve it. That's why to actually like improve the economy, you have to vote Aff to improve unions, improve the working conditions, and actually give them like an incentive to work.
Okay. Time starts now. Do you want the first question?
Sure. So let's talk about their argument on workplace safety, right? So is your 54% evidence causal?
Well, it basically does the analysis. It controls for what happened before and after, right? It's a really good study, and it finds that even like accounting for like that there's differences. The 54% difference is really substantial, and it's from right to work laws.
Okay.
Could we have a
Do you have
question?
a question?
Yeah. So on this thing, right? On our API, this is what you told me. You said the methodology is bad. Why is it bad?
Yeah.
Right. Like,
Sure.
I feel like that.
I'm gonna read quote. I'm gonna read. Yeah. Sure. So I'll just tell you what our evidence is saying. It actually, so another foundation, they tried to replicate the EPI study, and it found EPI made several methodological errors. Quote, these mistakes drive their finding that right to work laws lower wages and thus lower the economy. Correcting these, like, dude, I'm not like a researcher. Like, I don't exactly. Okay, well, actually, what I do know. Basically, what they did was, they basically they tried to like. Let me just read this, man. Oh, okay. So basically, you know how you tried to like say they control, right? Basically, the problem is that they use improper controls because they tried to control for occupation, which proved an important factor, which is basically how education raises earnings. And you have to, and basically when you include it in the analysis, it makes it appear that education boosts earnings a lot less than it actually does. And our evidence actually analyzed your study and found that it had really bad controls, which is why it produced biased results.
So what is your evidence?
Our evidence is really
Where's your evidence from?
It's from the Heritage Foundation.
Okay, what's the Heritage? Who funds the Heritage Foundation? It is the most notoriously corporate-funded anti-union head in the world. Let's take a look, right?
Like,
Would you rather?
Wait. Here's the thing, right?
Like
just like you said,
the Heritage Foundation.
No, I look at the methodology. Like it doesn't matter who reads. I think instead of looking at the author of the study, look at the methodology. Like if I'm directly showing that your study has methodological issues, and I'm trying to dispute the like actual content of your study, that's a lot better. Like you just saying my author is bad, and I'm thinking, see, your study is funded by unions, my study is funded by corporations. So clearly, both of us have biases. I'm saying let's look at the methodology.
Yeah. You know what? Both of the studies are biased, right? One can say one. Again, a biased person can just be like, "Oh, hey, this study's bad. It had this error. There's no way to prove it, right?" So at that point, let's not look at the evidence. Let's look at the warrants, right? Let's look at the warrants.
No, let's look at the actual studies and find out which studies are able to analyze the right things. Like I just feel like we should be
again. Your study can just say, "Oh, hey, this was wrong in this study. This was wrong in this study." But clearly, ours is peer reviewed. It's published by the U.S. Department of Labor. It clearly does not have these methodological flaws, right?
First of all,
let's say to the point.
First of all, the U.S. Department of Labor isn't peer reviewed. B, the EPI just posts policy reports on their website. They're not. Yeah, the U.S. Department of Labor is peer reviewed
studies. These are peer. Okay. Let's put this aside, right? Let's put this aside, right? Let's say both of our evidences are bad. Why does right to work laws increase wages? That warrant has not been there.
Sure. Oh, no. What we say is that you're not accounting for the lower cost of living. My point is that you're not accounting for the lower cost of living.
I just want the warranting why right to work laws increase wages.
It's because they're having more small businesses that allow for a better economic conditions overall, which lead to higher wages. That's our argument. But we're way over for us. Let's start time now. It's over when they've conceded our specific link on small businesses. We explain that unions are started by depriving the resources and raising costs, leading to higher failure rates, overall decreasing returns on capital investment. Small businesses are key to recession recovery because if they fail, it prolongs recessions and are responsible for boosting employment during recessions, keeping 100 million people from pushing to poverty. They just extend one innovation term, but they've conceded our empirics that if the budget goes down by 25% on R&D and the patent citation decrease, they've conceded that their evidence, just as the propensity to innovate increases, that's super uncontextual for us here. Moreover, they make a new implication to small businesses. There's no actual warrant here. They don't implicate the specific term to recession recovery. There's no actual impact extended. You cannot consider voting off this term that unions somehow increase innovation. We also think we responded pretty well. Here's why this is round weighing. All of our weighing is conceded. They've conceded that A, we outweigh on scope because we affect the entire world. B, we are a prerequisite because if recessions occur and people lose their jobs, they can't access any of the benefits that they talk about in their case. And C, that firms decrease their benefits towards their employees during recession because of worse economic conditions, mean that firms have less money in the first place. All this is conceded. Let's go to their weighing. They say that they outweigh on probability because it's already happened. Even our evidence is historical too. Recessions have pulled hundreds of million people into poverty. Our evidence looks at entrepreneurship and finds that it's historically lower with unions. They say that lives are irreversible. We're the prerequisite. And B, poverty is the #1 cause of deaths globally, which means that we're definitely going to link in the best. They say that we outweigh on prime frame. They say they outweigh on time frame. We say that we're better on time frame since poverty is far intergenerational. At that point, the round is over. Let's go to their case. Specifically on politics, our non-unique is 100% conceded. They just say that there's a 50% drop in organizing efforts. Yes, we agree that their organizing efforts are dropped, but our Western evidence indicates that although RTW is associated with the conservative leadership with the state's legislature, these trends began before RTW, i.e. the fact that there's no impact on actual policy outcomes after moving RTW because conservative legislatures stay conservative. That is fully conceded in 100%. On the income argument, our argument here from the Reid evidence indicates that after you look at economic conditions, figures of 7.93% higher because the majority of right-to-work states are historically poor and they have a lower cost of living. Their EPI study has methodological flaws and has false controls. Our evidence actually looks at this. Look at the methodology, not just the authors.
Is everybody good? Okay, cool. Time will start my first word. Time starts now. Start on their case. The reason the round is over and they've lost this round is, yeah, sure, they have a bunch of weighing off their impact, but before their impact fruitions, our turn starts at a higher level. As my partner told you and extended with the weighing, we tell you that for workers to actually be innovating and working in small business and boosting the economy, they have to have the chance for wage bargaining, etc., which only unions provide by allowing them to collectively bargain. That evidence is conceded, and that's why we're talking about propensity to innovate increases by 23%. At that point, if the workers don't want to work and they're not innovating, they're not working in the small businesses, it's a prerequisite to having these small businesses and having these workers. That's been there throughout, and it's damning to their case. At that point, you don't see any of their benefits since workers aren't actually working harder. They're getting lower wages and they're getting worse in the economy. As a result, you can't buy any of their arguments. But regardless, let's go to our arguments. First of all, we tell you that because of free riding, which has been conceded throughout the round, that you under right to work laws, you don't have to pay the union. So everyone just starts free riding, not paying it. Unions sapped of all their resources, and they start collapsing. As a result, there's two negative impacts. First is that unions can't do things like joint efforts to lobby for political actors who A, pass safety nets, pulling millions out of poverty, with B, things like OSHA and Saving America's Worker Act, which has empirically saved 600,000 plus lives. But B, because of racial inequality, when you don't have unions to collectively bargain for the workers, you see an 11.5% drop in Black African American wages, which is the Wilson evidence, which is uncontested throughout the round. Even if EPI is methodologically flawed, so is their heritage evidence, and Wilson isn't the EPI, which is uncontested. As a result, millions of African Americans are trapped into intergenerational poverty. Let's start on the weighing first. A, lives are irreversible, like those are already dead people who we can't save anymore. It's a harm. They say poverty is like the leading cause of death, but again, there's economics are cyclical. But B, on their weighing that like they're a prereq. No, we're a prerequisite because if workers don't want to work again and they're dying in their workplace, you can't see any of the benefits they talk about. But B, we'd say ours is intergenerational, which they've conceded. So ours is specifically on the African Americans who've been oppressed. They're trying to link into our time frame weighing, but no, it's specifically African Americans who've been oppressed, not just general recessions. But then at that point, their only responses are that there's actually less wages. But remember, the warrant level is what you need to focus on. They don't have any warrants why unions decrease wages, but we tell you it's because of collective bargaining that workers can increase their wages and get out of this intergenerational poverty. At that point, they have no solvency for the working class. Affirm.
Great round, y'all.
Good round,
Thank you so much
everyone.
for judging.
Good round. Thank you for judging.
Thank you so much for judging.